Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've been a structural engineer for 15 years. I didn't get here by accident. I studied through sleepless nights, worked on site in freezing weather and scorching heat, double-checked calculations until my eyes burned. I've designed bridges, schools, apartment buildings. I've made sure people are safe when they walk into the structures I help create. It's not just a job, it's who I am. My husband and I bought our house 3 years ago. It's small, but it's ours. We have a garden I never have time to tend, a kitchen we actually use, and a cat named Pepper who showed up on our doorstep during a rainstorm 2 years ago. She was soaked and shivering, and I couldn't just leave her there. My husband agreed. We took her in and she became family. His mother has never liked Pepper. From the first time she visited after we adopted her, she made comments. The fur on the couch, the litter box in the laundry room, the scratching post in the corner of the living room, but she never said anything direct. Just little remarks here and there that I tried to ignore because I didn't want to cause problems. She also has this habit of showing up without warning. No phone call, no text message, just suddenly there at the door with a smile and an excuse about being in the neighborhood or wanting to surprise us. My husband says that's just how she is, that she means well. I've tried to be understanding, I really have. Friday evening, I came home from work exhausted. We've been dealing with a complicated project all week, and I just wanted to collapse on the couch with Pepper and zone out. I walked through the door and found my mother-in-law standing in our living room with a suitcase at her feet. She looked up at me and smiled, announcing that she'd decided to come stay for the weekend. She called it a little holiday. I stood there still holding my work bag and told her she hadn't let us know she was coming. She waved it off, saying she wanted it to be a surprise. Then she added that we were family, so she shouldn't need an invitation. My husband came out from the kitchen. He looked as surprised as I felt. He gently told his mother that she should have called first. She brushed him off, insisting it was fine and that he shouldn't be silly about it. It wasn't fine, but I didn't have the energy to argue. I went to our bedroom to change, and when I came back out, she was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, staring at Pepper, who was curled up on the armchair. She asked with obvious disgust why that thing was still here. I corrected her, telling her the cat's name was Pepper. She said she didn't understand why we kept her. She pointed at the scratch marks on the chair leg and said Pepper was ruining our furniture. I told her we didn't mind. She insisted we should mind. She said this was our home and we were letting an animal wreck it. I didn't respond. I went into the kitchen to start dinner. My husband followed me. He apologized, saying he didn't know she was coming. I told him I knew that. He asked me to just try to get through the weekend. I nodded, but I could already feel the tension building. The rest of Friday was uncomfortable but manageable. Saturday was worse. She made comments every time Pepper walked into the room. About the smell, even though we keep the litter box clean. About the hair, even though we vacuum regularly. About how irresponsible it was to have pets. Then Saturday night during dinner she said something that made my blood run cold. She told me she'd been thinking. She said that if I let an animal wreck my own home, how could anyone trust me to build safe structures? I put my fork down and asked her what she just said. She repeated herself, saying she was just pointing out that it was about responsibility. She claimed that if I couldn't manage my own house, how could clients trust my judgment? I told her my work had nothing to do with my cat. She disagreed completely. She said it had everything to do with it, that it was about standards and discipline. My husband tried to interrupt, telling his mother that wasn't fair. She said she was just being honest. I stood up from the table and told her I'd spent 15 years building my career. I explained that I'd worked on projects that affect thousands of people and that I'd never had a single complaint about my work. Then I asked her if she was really comparing my cat to termites and mold. She said she was just trying to help me see reason. I told her this was my house, that she didn't get to come here uninvited and insult me. I left the table. I could hear them talking in low voices, but I didn't care. I went to our bedroom and closed the door. Later that night, she knocked and said we needed to talk. I opened the door. She told me she was going to be direct. She said it was either her or the cat. She told me that if I cared about this family, I would prove it by getting rid of the cat. Those were her exact words. I stared at her. I told her the cat was staying. I said this was my home and she didn't get to walk in and decide who lives here. She screamed that I always needed to be in control, that I couldn't just listen, that I couldn't just respect my elders. I told her she didn't respect me, that she never had. She screamed something else, but I didn't catch it because she turned and stormed into the guest room, slamming the door behind her. Sunday morning, I woke up and she was gone. No goodbye, no note, just an empty guest room and her suitcase missing from the hallway. My husband found me in the kitchen and told me she'd left. I said I knew. He said she was upset. I told him I was upset too. He said he didn't know what to do. I told him he didn't have to do anything, that she'd made her choice. He looked tired. I felt tired too. She'd tried to make me choose between my home, my pet, my peace, and her approval. And I'd chosen myself. Pepper jumped onto the counter and rubbed against my arm. I scratched behind her ears. This was my house, my life, and no one was going to take that away from me. I'm the youngest in my family, and I was in my 20s doing my master's degree abroad when this happened. My brother is married to this amazing woman who's an architect. They have a son together who was around 4 or 5 years old at the time. Now he's almost a teenager. My sister-in-law had a really tough time when she gave birth to my nephew. Something went wrong during delivery and her uterus got torn. The doctor tried to fix it, but hours later, it still wasn't closing properly. She started bleeding internally, like really bad. We almost lost her that day. It took her a long time to recover, both physically and mentally. That experience left some serious scars on her. So this whole thing happened during one of our massive family gatherings at my parents' house. And when I say massive, I mean absolutely huge. My mom has 8 siblings, and my dad has 10. Just imagine all the cousins, their spouses, and their kids. We're talking about 60 plus people easily crammed into one place. It was chaos, but the good kind usually. During the gathering, one of our cousins, who was pregnant for the first time, was there. She was glowing and super excited about everything. She spotted my sister-in-law and practically bounced over to talk to her. They started chatting about pregnancy stuff, just light topics at first. Food cravings, swollen feet, those kinds of things. I was sitting nearby just eating and listening. I wasn't really part of that conversation since I wasn't even thinking about having kids at that point in my life. Everything was fine until they got to the topic of childbirth. My sister-in-law mentioned briefly that her experience was quite traumatizing, but she tried to keep it vague. She quickly added that it was uncommon and that our cousin would probably be fine. She didn't want to scare her or anything. After chatting for a bit, our cousin asked if my sister-in-law was planning on having a second child. She said she wanted to have maybe 3 kids because she loved them so much. My sister-in-law just smiled politely and said 1 was enough for them. Then she tried to change the subject to something else, like baby clothes or diaper brands. But our cousin wasn't letting it go. She kept pushing, asking why my sister-in-law didn't want another one. She said it would be good to give my nephew a brother or sister and another grandchild for the parents and in-laws. Then she actually laughed and turned to me, making some comment about how I was forever in school and it would probably take me a long time to even get married. I just sat there thinking, what the hell? I wasn't even part of this conversation. And excuse me, but prioritizing my education in my 20s over having kids was actually a good thing. But I didn't say anything. I just smiled and kept eating my food. My sister-in-law tried again to steer the conversation back to our cousin's pregnancy and away from herself. But this woman just kept pushing. She pointed out that my sister-in-law was a stay-at-home mom, and since my nephew would be going to kindergarten soon, she wouldn't have much to do at home. She said it seemed like the perfect time to have a second kid. I wanted to jump in and say something because that was complete nonsense. My sister-in-law was just starting her interior design and renovation business. Both she and my brother are architects. She was actually really busy building her career, but I held my tongue. This went on for what felt like forever. Our cousin kept pushing the topic, and my sister-in-law kept trying to deflect it politely. I could see her getting more and more uncomfortable. Finally, something in her just snapped. My sister-in-law was still smiling, but there was something different in her eyes now. She said, okay, she couldn't have a second kid. Then she just laid it all out there. She described every single detail of her birth story in the most graphic way possible, but with this super bubbly, cheerful tone like she was talking about a fun vacation. She told our cousin about how much blood she lost during delivery. She explained that her heart actually stopped beating for a few seconds. She described how they had to remove her entire uterus. She talked about how incredibly painful the recovery was because she went through a normal birth and then had to have this major abdominal surgery. She said her vagina and her belly were completely destroyed. Then she got into the really graphic stuff about the first time she had to poop after giving birth. She mentioned her horrible hemorrhoids and how she felt like all her stitches were going to tear open. She described the blood that was everywhere for weeks. She went into even more detail than that, describing things that made me lose my appetite. But she kept that bright, cheerful voice the entire time, like she was talking about the weather. She made sure to emphasize every painful, bloody, traumatizing moment with the enthusiasm of someone describing their favorite movie. Our cousin's face went pale. She suddenly became very interested in her plate and stopped talking completely. She just sat there munching her food in silence, clearly regretting every question she had asked. Then my sister-in-law turned to me with the sweetest smile and asked how my school was going. Her tone was so light and casual, like she hadn't just described the most horrifying medical experience in vivid detail. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. The rest of the meal was beautifully quiet. Our cousin didn't ask my sister-in-law any more personal questions ever again. I've been saving up for almost 8 months for a new TV. My old one finally died back in February, and since then, I've been watching everything on my laptop like some kind of college student. I'm 32 years old. I deserve better than squinting at a 15-inch screen. I work as a night shift warehouse supervisor, which means my schedule is all kinds of messed up. The pay is decent, but between rent, car payments, and student loans, there's not much left over for luxuries. So when I saw that the electronics store was having a Black Friday sale with 65-inch TVs marked down by 60%, I knew this was my shot. I took the day off, set 3 alarms, and got to the store at 4 a.m. to wait in line. The cold November air bit at my face as I stood there with my coffee, surrounded by other sleep-deprived shoppers. We were all tired, cold, and a little grumpy, but there was this unspoken agreement that we were all in this together. Most people anyway. The doors opened at 5 a.m. and there was the usual rush, but nothing too crazy. I made a beeline for the electronics section. According to the ad, they had 20 of these TVs in stock. When I got there, I counted the remaining boxes on the pallet. 7 left. My heart was pounding when I grabbed one of the boxes and started maneuvering it onto a flatbed cart. These things are heavy and awkward, but I managed. That's when she showed up, Karen. She looked at the remaining TVs, then at mine, then back at the pallet. She told me she needed that TV. I apologized and explained that I'd already grabbed it, pointing out that there were still 6 more available right there. She insisted she didn't want those ones and wanted the specific one I had. I told her they were all the same model, completely identical. She claimed that one was hers because she saw it first. I reminded her that she'd literally just walked up while I'd been loading the box for the past 2 minutes. She tried to grab the box off my cart. I held on to the other side, completely bewildered. An employee noticed the commotion and came over. The employee asked her to please not touch other customers' items and pointed out that there were more TVS available right there. She complained that this was unacceptable and that she'd driven an hour to get here. The employee said he understood but explained that I had gotten to it first and there were still 6 units available. She finally let go, but not before shooting me a look that could melt steel. I quickly pushed my cart toward the checkout area, relieved to be away from her. The line was long, but I didn't care. I had my TV. It took about 40 minutes to check out. The whole time I kept looking around nervously, half expecting that woman to cause more problems. But I didn't see her again inside the store. I paid, got my receipt, and started pushing my cart out to the parking lot. The sun was just starting to come up, casting this orange glow over everything. My car was parked pretty far out because of how early I'd arrived and how full the lot had become. I was already thinking about how I was going to set up this TV in my living room, maybe order some pizza, and finally watch movies the way they were meant to be watched. I had just reached my car and opened the trunk when I heard rapid footsteps behind me. She yelled that it was my fault. I turned around, and there she was, red-faced and furious. She was empty-handed. I asked her what she was talking about. She screamed that they ran out, and because of me, they ran out of TVs. I reminded her that there were 6 left when I saw her, and that was almost an hour ago. She said they were gone now and claimed I took too long deciding, so other people got them. I pointed out that her logic didn't make sense since I'd gotten mine before she even showed up. She insisted that if I hadn't taken that specific TV, she would have gotten one. Her logic was completely insane, but she wasn't listening to reason. She was working herself into a frenzy. Before I could react, she kicked my TV box. Hard. I told her to stop. She declared that if she couldn't have one, then no one could. She kicked it again and again. I tried to position myself between her and the box, but she was in a complete rage. She started punching it, kicking it with both feet. The box was getting dented, and I could hear something cracking inside. I asked if she was insane and demanded she stop right now. Other shoppers were starting to notice, some pulling out their phones. She landed one final devastating kick that definitely broke something inside. I heard the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. That was it. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I told the operator I needed police at the electronics store on Route 9 because a woman just destroyed my property in the parking lot. That seemed to snap her out of her trance. Her eyes went wide, and she started backing toward the parking lot. She said I couldn't prove anything. She turned and started running toward her car, a white luxury sedan parked a few rows over. I ran to my car, jumped in, and started the engine. I wasn't about to let her just drive away after destroying an $800 TV. I pulled out quickly and positioned my car to block her exit from the parking space. She was already in her car, and when she realized she was blocked, she started honking her horn like crazy. I could see her screaming inside her car, her face twisted with rage. I stayed put, my heart hammering in my chest. The 911 operator was still on the line, and I explained what was happening. The operator told me not to engage with her and said police were 3 minutes away, but she wasn't waiting 3 minutes. I saw her put her car in reverse, then drive forward, building up speed. My stomach dropped when I realized what she was about to do as she rammed right into my car. The impact jolted me hard against my seatbelt. My car alarm started blaring, but she didn't stop. She backed up and hit the gas again, slamming into my car a second time. This time I heard a loud crunch from her vehicle. Steam started rising from under her hood. She tried to reverse again, but her car made this horrible grinding noise and then just died. She turned the key frantically, but nothing happened. She was stuck. I got out of my car, shaking from adrenaline, and saw the damage. My front bumper was completely smashed, and my hood was dented, but her car looked way worse. The front end was crumpled, fluids were leaking onto the pavement, and her hood was actually buckled upward. People were gathering now, recording on their phones. 2 people who'd witnessed the whole thing came over to me. One of them asked if I was okay and said they saw everything. The other one said that woman was completely unhinged, and that they'd tell the police what happened. I thanked them both repeatedly. The police arrived about 2 minutes later, which felt like forever. 2 officers got out, and I immediately pointed to her car. I explained that she was the one who destroyed my TV in the parking lot, and when I blocked her from leaving, she rammed my car twice. Karen had gotten out of her car and was already approaching the officers with this fake concerned expression. She told them that thank God they were here because I attacked her. She claimed I blocked her car and wouldn't let her leave, and that she was afraid for her life. One officer told her to please step back and said they'd get everyone's statements. The other officer came over to me and I explained everything from the beginning. The incident in the store, her following me out, the destruction of my TV, the ramming. The two witnesses came forward and backed up my story, even mentioning that they'd recorded parts of it on their phones. Meanwhile, Karen was still trying to spin her story to the other officer, but it was falling apart fast. The physical evidence was clear. My car had damage to the front where she'd rammed it. Her car was completely disabled, and my TV box was sitting there, dented and damaged, with a clear footprint on one side. The first officer told her that based on the evidence and witness statements, he was placing her under arrest for destruction of property and assault with a deadly weapon. She asked what he meant and said this was ridiculous because she was the victim here, but they weren't buying it. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car. She was screaming the whole time about how she was going to sue me, how she knew the mayor, how I'd regret this. Empty threats from someone who just destroyed herself. The officers took detailed photos of everything, got the witness contact information, and had me file a complete report. I also had to show them my receipt for the TV and explain what had happened inside the store that led to all this. The store manager actually came out after hearing about the incident and reviewed the security footage from inside the store, which showed her trying to take my TV off my cart. They gave the police a copy. A tow truck came for her car, and another one came for mine since it wasn't safe to drive with the front end damage. I had to get a ride home from a friend, empty-handed and exhausted. The next few weeks were a blur of insurance claims, police follow-ups, and court dates. She was charged with criminal mischief, destruction of property, and assault with a vehicle. The evidence was overwhelming. The security footage, the witness testimonies, the physical damage, everything pointed to her being completely at fault. The court eventually ordered her to pay full restitution for the damages to my car, which came out to about $3,200 after the bodywork. She also had to compensate me for the TV, and since it was limited edition on sale and now unavailable, the judge ordered her to pay the current retail price, which was $1,400, plus court fees and her own legal troubles. I used the money to buy an even better TV, 75 inches this time. My husband and I have been together for 14 years. We were doing okay financially, not great, but okay. We had a nice 2-bedroom apartment, and our oldest son had just turned 9 when I found out I was pregnant again. Total surprise. We weren't planning on another kid, but we were happy about it. The problem was our living situation. For 3 years, our youngest has slept in our bedroom. Not by choice. Our oldest needed his own space as he got older, which meant the baby had to stay with us. Do you know what it's like to share your bedroom with a toddler for 3 years? Every single night. No privacy, no personal space, toys everywhere. Being woken up at all hours. Don't get me wrong, I love my kid more than anything, but I was exhausted. So we made a plan. We cut back on everything. My husband took every overtime shift he could get. I picked up weekend work. We stopped eating out. No vacations, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary. We put every extra penny into savings because the housing market was absolutely insane, and we needed a bigger down payment than we ever imagined. Finally, after 3 years of grinding, we did it. We closed on a 3-bedroom house last month. The whole family was involved in setting up the youngest's room. His big brother helped pick out the paint color, this nice soft blue. We built the bed together. We hung up his drawings on the walls. We made it special because this was his space finally. We made such a big deal about it because it was a big deal. This kid had never had his own room. Now here's where things get messy. My younger sister left her boyfriend 2 weeks ago. The relationship was bad, really bad. He was controlling and verbally abusive, and I was relieved when she finally got out. Of course, I told her she could stay with us. She's my sister. I love her. But I was very clear from day one. The couch was hers for as long as she needed, but the boys' rooms were off limits. I wasn't going to make either of them give up their spaces. Not after what we went through to get here. Things were fine for the first week and a half. Then yesterday happened. My sister sat down with my husband and me after the kids went to bed. She said she wanted to talk to us about something. I asked her what was going on. She told us she'd been thinking, and since the little one runs into our room every night anyway, maybe she could use his room. She said it would just be temporary until she got back on her feet. I felt my stomach drop. I told her no way. I reminded her that I'd made it clear when she moved in that the boys' rooms were off limits. She argued that he wasn't even using the room because he ended up in our bed every single night. She said it was just sitting there empty. My husband chimed in and said she had a point, that our son did usually end up sleeping with us. I told them that wasn't the point. I said that was his room and we'd worked for 3 years to give him that space. My sister shot back that he was 3 years old and didn't even understand the concept of personal space. She said he wouldn't care. I told her that I cared. I asked if she had any idea how much overtime we'd worked and how many sacrifices we'd made. I said this wasn't just about him, it was about all of us finally having our own space. She said she couldn't believe I was being so selfish. She brought up that she'd just left an abusive relationship and couldn't believe I couldn't even help her out with this one thing. That's when I lost it. I asked her what was selfish about it. I told her that what was selfish was asking me to take away my son's room after I'd specifically told her it wasn't an option. I asked her if she knew what it was like to always share her space with a toddler, to never have a single moment of privacy in her own bedroom for 3 years straight. She said it wasn't like it would be forever, just until she saved up enough money to get her own place. I told her it didn't matter. I said this was my house. I reminded her that I'd worked my butt off for this house and had set one boundary with her. Just one. And she couldn't respect it. She said, wow, just wow. She said she was my sister and was going through the hardest time of her life, and I couldn't even do this for her. I told her that if she didn't like the arrangement, she knew where the door was. She stared at me for a long moment, then got up and went to the couch without another word. That was yesterday evening. She hasn't spoken to me since. She won't look at me. The tension in the house is unbearable. My husband thinks I went too far. He said she's going through a hard time and I should apologize for yelling. But I'm not sorry for holding my boundary. Maybe I'm sorry for how I said it, but not for what I said. This morning she called our mom. I know because mom called me an hour later. She told me that my sister was very upset. I said I knew that already. Mom said my sister had been through so much and asked if I couldn't just let her have the room. I told her no, that was his room. My mom said he was only 3 and would adjust. I hung up on her. Later that afternoon, my sister finally came out of her corner of the living room. She had her phone in her hand and this smug look on her face. She told me she'd posted about our situation online and that everyone agreed I was being unreasonable. She showed me her phone with some group chat where all her friends were calling me heartless and selfish. She said I should be ashamed of myself for treating family this way. I looked at the messages. I saw people who had no idea what we'd been through calling me names and saying I was a terrible sister. My sister stood there waiting for me to apologize or back down. Instead, I told her she had until the end of the week to find somewhere else to stay. I said if she was going to trash talk me to her friends and try to manipulate me into doing what she wanted, she could do it from someone else's couch. I reminded her that I'd opened my home to her with one simple rule, and she'd not only tried to break it, but was now trying to turn people against me for not giving in. She called me a cold, heartless witch. She said she couldn't believe I'd kick her out when she had nowhere to go. She started crying and saying I was abandoning her, just like her ex said I would. I told her I wasn't abandoning her. I was protecting my family and my boundaries. I said she could call mom or one of her friends who thought I was so terrible, and maybe they'd let her stay with them. She packed up her stuff that night. Before she left, she told me I'd regret this, and that the whole family would know what kind of person I really was. She slammed the door on her way out. My husband was quiet for a while after she left. Then he admitted that maybe I've been right all along. He said he hadn't realized how manipulative she was being until she tried to use social media against me. 2 days later, my mom called again. She said my sister had come to stay with her, but that her apartment was too small for a long-term arrangement. She tried to guilt me into taking her back. I asked mom if she'd be willing to give up her bedroom for my sister. Mom went quiet. I told her that was exactly my point. I said everyone wanted to judge my decision, but nobody wanted to make the same sacrifice they were asking me to make. Mom hasn't called back since. My youngest still runs into our room most nights, but now when I walk him back to his own bed, I don't feel guilty about it. This is his space. We earned it, and I don't regret protecting it for 1 second. I've worked at this manufacturing company for about 6 years now, starting right out of college in their production planning department. Our office is in the production building, which is separate from the corporate office about 2 miles down the road. We're a smaller group here, maybe 30 people total, all crammed into cubicles in one big open floor plan. It's not fancy, but it works. The corporate office is where all the executives sit in their fancy private offices with actual windows and everything. About 3 years ago, this woman transferred over from corporate to our building. She got her own private office because she was some kind of senior analyst, which already rubbed people the wrong way since the rest of us were stuck in our little fabric-walled boxes. But whatever, that wasn't the real problem. The problem was her attitude. She immediately started acting like she was everyone's supervisor, even though she had zero authority over any of us. She'd walk around the floor multiple times a day, literally looking over people's shoulders at their computer screens or checking what they were printing. The printer thing became her obsession. She taped up signs all over the printer area about using double-sided printing to save paper and company resources. If she caught you printing single-sided, she'd walk right over and lecture you about waste. She'd actually go through the printer output tray and look at what people had printed, then track them down if she deemed it wasteful or inappropriate. My coworker printed out his fantasy football roster one Monday morning, and she spent 20 minutes berating him in front of everyone about misuse of company resources. Another time, someone printed directions to a client site for a business trip, and she told them they should have just used their phone instead of wasting paper. People started calling her the printer Nazi behind her back. It sounds harsh, but it fit. She appointed herself the enforcer of rules that either didn't exist or that nobody cared about except her. Management never told her to stop, probably because they didn't want to deal with the confrontation. So she just kept getting worse. I became friends with this guy from the IT department during a systems migration project about a year after she arrived. He'd come over from corporate to help with the transition, and we hit it off. We grab coffee on breaks and complain about office politics. He was a really chill guy, super laid back, which you wouldn't expect from someone in IT management. Yeah, it turns out he was actually the head of IT for the entire company, but he never acted superior about it. Fast forward to last spring. We knew some major storms were rolling through the area that afternoon, like serious tornado warnings and everything. The company had a policy that employees should monitor weather conditions for safety reasons, especially since our building didn't have a proper storm shelter. My IT friend and a few of his team members were set up in some vacant cubicles in our building that week doing network upgrades. I saw them that morning but got busy with my own work and didn't get a chance to chat. Around mid-morning, I heard her voice carrying across the office floor. That condescending tone she used when she was about to lecture someone. I peeked over my cubicle wall and saw her standing behind one of the IT guys' temporary workstations. She told him she couldn't help but notice he was looking at weather websites on company time. He explained that he was just checking the storm system coming in that day. She immediately launched into her lecture about how company internet was for company business only and that personal use was strictly prohibited and could result in disciplinary action. She demanded he close it immediately. He tried to reason with her, mentioning the tornado warnings for the area and that he was just trying to stay safe. She dismissed this and said that's what his phone was for and that company resources were not to be used for personal matters. She threatened to report this to his supervisor. He simply told her, okay, if that's what she felt she needed to do. She walked away looking satisfied with herself, and he just went back to his work like nothing happened. I was honestly impressed by how calm he stayed. During our break, he came and found me in the break room. We were the only ones in there. He told me he just got chewed out by some woman about checking the weather. I asked him to describe her and confirmed it was Karen. I explained that she was like the self-appointed office monitor who had made everyone miserable for years, always tattling on people and making up rules. He asked if she had any idea who he was. I told him probably not since he didn't usually work in this building. He got this look on his face, kind of amused but also calculating. He didn't say anything else about it, just changed the subject, but I could tell something was brewing. A few days later, he called me during lunch. He reminded me about our conversation regarding Karen. I said yeah and asked what about it. He told me he got curious, and since she was so concerned about proper use of company internet, he decided to pull her browsing history. I asked what he found. He explained that she'd been online shopping for hours every single day. Clothing sites, home decor, you name it. He said that the very day she lectured him, she spent 3 hours shopping and actually purchased something right after she walked away from his desk. I told him he had to be kidding. He said nope, and that he'd documented everything and submitted it to HR and her actual supervisor. They were investigating now. I didn't hear much after that for about a week. Then one afternoon I saw 2 people from HR walk into her office with a box. They came out 10 minutes later with her personal items, and she walked out between them looking absolutely furious. No goodbye, no explanation to anyone, just gone. Later I found out she'd been fired for misuse of company resources and time theft. Apparently she'd been doing the online shopping thing for over a year, sometimes spending 4 or 5 hours a day browsing and purchasing stuff. The investigation found thousands of dollars in personal purchases made on company time. If she just minded her own business and not harassed my friend from IT, nobody would have ever looked into her internet usage. She literally got herself fired by being a hypocrite. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.